Okay, let me begin to introduce our panel and invite our panel to come up. First, I'd like to introduce Celeste. Celestina Quintana is the owner and operator for a New Jersey chain of McDonald's restaurants, and Celeste is also on our board of directors at NJBIA. Celeste, come on up. Catherine Wengel is the worldwide vice president for Johnson & Johnson's supply chain. Catherine. Thank you. Brenda Ross Doolin, regional president, Southern New Jersey Wells Fargo and Company. Brenda. And our moderator this morning is Jeannie Murphy, and Jeannie is the partner and co-founder of Jeannie Murphy Public Relations and Mariah Media. Jeannie? And I will let you take it away.
Thank you. Hello, everybody. Good morning. I'm Jeannie Murphy again. My business partner here, Colleen Kelly, and I have a media company called Mariah Media. We produce television shows and radio shows, mostly called Talented People, which I think you all are here today. We'd love to have you on the shows. I just want to let you know that I'm so excited to be here. I want to thank Michelle, New Jersey Business Industry Association, everybody, sponsors, and all of you guys for being here, because it really is such an honor to me. I can't believe the talent in this room. I was privileged enough to see the list of attendees, the companies. You know, as women, you just think back, I do at least, I think back about like Mary Poppins and, you know, all the movements that women have had to make. And then I look at this room here and I'm thinking, I can't believe the progress. And I want to be part of the future generations, our daughters and their daughters that look up and say, how did they do that? So I think we're on the right track. I am not going to be a mic hog today. I'm going to really quickly again introduce Catherine here, as Michelle already did, and thanks again if I forgot about thanking anyone, thank you. Catherine is the worldwide vice president for the supply chain at Johnson & Johnson. And then Celeste Quintana, you do have 11 McDonald's and you employ over 500 different people. And then Brenda Ross Doolin, you manage about over 150 Wells Fargo's and $12 billion of deposits. So I'm like, oh my goodness. Between these two people here, there's 6,000 businesses between the Wells Fargo's and the McDonald's that are right here with these two, and then the worldwide Johnson & Johnson. So, isn't that incredible? I'm so like, wow. All right, so this morning what we're going to do is we're going to have a series of questions. I'm going to kind of open them up and ask the ladies. Whoever decides they want to answer is going to just chime in. And then after since we're running ahead, please get a couple questions in mind so we can fill in that space. All right, so ladies, okay. In your experience, what are some of the primary skills that women need to have to be considered for an executive level position?
Shall I start? Okay, I'll start. First, I believe that these skills are very translatable, whether you're a man or a female. But I look at the world in a few ways. One is you have to be able to build strategy for an executive position. You have to be able to build a vision for your team, for your company, for your nonprofit that is motivating, that drives your business forward, and that you can hitch your workforce to, that you can really inspire your team for. Second, I believe you've got to execute. You have to be able to deliver on your commitments, but that includes the components of what you deliver and also how you deliver it, right? You can deliver results and leave a lot of dead bodies behind, or you can deliver results that build the business for the future. And therefore, to me, it's also then about leadership, and it's about picking great leaders, picking team members, and building the capabilities you need to do both of those. So strategy, execution, and leadership.
Let's hear Celeste.
So, well, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. I think that in order to be a great leader, you have to lead by example, and leading, and as you said, that picking the right people to follow you, or because if you're not the leader that they're going to look to, and then you have to be knowledgeable, because if you're knowledgeable, they will admire you, they will follow you. If you just BSing most of the time, you're going to have a lot of dead bodies. And if you're And if you're looking to mentor people, women, especially women, and I always say, give a sister a hand, pull us all up, because we've all been pulled up by one way or another. So just having those great leadership skills, and then having that ability to look and see whether somebody really wants to move up. And sometimes they're not really good in that position. They might not want to be in that position. So having that conversation with them, would you like to move up? What are your plans? What are your plans for life? What would you like to do? Do you love what you're doing? And if you don't, let's have a different conversation. So it's all about just being able to have great communication skills and being honest and being a good human being, first of all. At any point, whether you're leading or following, just being a good human being.
So it sounds like there's a theme here about dead bodies.
Dead body panel.
Just trying to break the ice here.
Yeah.
What's really interesting to me is the thing that sort of came to mind when you asked that question was, it reminded me of, I remember not sort of going to the C-suite, if you will, but I remember being an analyst when I first started in banking, and my manager, who coincidentally happened to be a man, so we will invite all the men to leave the room. But, he said to me, there were a bunch of us getting ready to be promoted to vice president. So he looked at me and he said, Brenda, I'm not sure, you're ready to be a vice president right now. So, and I said, well, why? Everybody around me, they're being promoted. And he said, you're too workmanlike. You act like a worker, if you will. I was like, okay. And I said, well, wait a minute. I spent most of my life trying to be good, right? I was valedictorian of my high school class. I graduated from my MBA program at UCLA. I was probably had some of the best performance than anybody else. But I'm sitting here and you're saying you're a little too much like a worker. And what was interesting to me is at the time that he shared that with me, I'm not even entirely sure I understood exactly what that meant. Because I was taking that personally. It was like, well, wait a minute. This is, I'm the woman in the room. I'm the black woman in the room. Why are you calling me out? But I think it really crystallizes your question, and that is, what separates those of us that are really good at our jobs, right? And how do you get to the next level? And what was interesting to me, if you take anything away, you should realize that just because, and I had to realize that just because I'm good at the job that I'm at does not necessarily mean that I am ready for the next level. And so the difference between those of us, particularly for us as women, we walk in, everything's buttoned up, we checked out. How many of us had a list today before we got here? We checked everything off our list. We were the first ones here. We got everything done. What was the difference? So there is a book that's called What Got You Here Won't Get You There. And if you ever have an opportunity to read that, please do so. So what's the distinguishing factor? One is strategic thinking. That sometimes I'm very good in my space. I'm good technically, but can I think broadly? Can I think strategically? Can I see how I fit within the big picture? Maybe, maybe not. And that piece of it is so very critical as you're looking to get to the next level. I think the other piece of it is this thing that I sort of loosely call emotional intelligence. That as you get to that next level, being very good isn't enough, because once you get there, you realize, oh my God, everybody else is good too. Everybody else is smart too. I'm not the only one that has all the answers, all the calculations, all the numbers. But the ability to see how you fit within the bigger picture is really what sometimes keeps us out of that next level, thinking broadly, and also this piece that I call emotional intelligence, understanding that even though you have a lot of smart people in the room that are good technically, that at the end of the day, not every single decision is factually based. There is some emotion that's in the equation. That the reason why Michelle may agree with me or not agree with me may not be the fact that what I'm saying is right. It may be that the last decision she made got her in trouble and she's going to say no. Because there's some anxiety, there's some fears, there's some people issues that really have to be brought into play. So the emotional intelligence and strategic thinking is so very important as you distinguish yourself from being an individual producer or an individual technician or someone really very good in their place to getting to the next level.
Yes, thank you so much. You guys, is that on? Can you hear me? No. Check. I don't know why it's not working.
You want to bounce over there?
Yeah. While we're waiting, I just wanted to let everyone know, let's back up a little bit and get a little bit more history. I know Celeste here, when she came over she was born in Spain, and when she moved over with her family, she worked let's tell a little bit about your story. I know that you opened your own dress shop, and then you decided to take a chance. So I want to talk about chances, taking chances.
So in 1964, my father and my mother immigrated from Spain with 8 children. And they didn't come here to broaden their horizon because they just wanted an intellectual experience. They came in because Spain had come out of the Civil War, and it was just very, very difficult. My parents knew that there was no opportunity for us to make it in Spain. So in 1964, we came and we settled. My parents settled in Newark because that's where all the industry was and factories, and that's where they worked. They were factory workers. My father was a farmer in Spain. I was born on a farm, so I know the difference between a weed and a good plant and a bad plant. I know how to grow tomatoes and peppers and all of that, but I came as a little girl. So being raised in Newark and having to help to work to support my family. We were 8, number 6. So then I worked for a dentist while I was going to high school. I started working when I was in 8th grade, which I think was illegal then, but nobody knew. And I started working at the age of 10. I hardly spoke the language, and I started working at Bingo. On Friday nights, we would serve coffee and donuts at Bingo, and I almost did not understand. So light and sweet might have been dark and whatever. So I started working for this dentist, which is today he's still my mentor. He's my second father. I've learned so much from him, and having mentors is really critical and important. I worked for him. Then I was going to Montclair State at nighttime, still having to work full-time to help my mom and my dad support all of us. But I always knew that I wanted to be I wanted to have my own business. I wanted to work for myself. I was difficult to work with. I knew that I had that energy, and I wanted to work for myself. So I had $15,000 in a pension plan. So I pulled that out, and my friend and I opened up a dress shop. Did I know anything about clothing? Yes, other than I like to wear nice clothes, but I knew nothing about that industry. So we learned it. We had one store, then we opened up another one. Eventually, she passed away very young at the age of 31. Then I sold one store and kept the other, and that's where I met. But I took the $15,000 that to me was like, it was $1 million at that time. It was $15,000 that I had to borrow and still pay a penalty on because I borrowed it. But we took that chance and opened up the clothing store, and I learned. And I learned by making mistakes, and I learned by other people's mistakes, and by having people and asking questions and reading and looking and looking. I always wanted to be my own business person, to have my own business. Then within that clothing store, and that's where you don't know what opportunities and where you're at that it's going to open the door for you. So within that I had a woman that walked in and she said to me, listen, you're a talker and you're good with people. You're a great person to deal with. Why don't you just apply for McDonald's? And I said, oh my God, McDonald's, what do I want to do that for? That's crazy. McDonald's, I go and I eat burgers. And I was not aware that the franchising aspect of that business. And so I sold my business, and so then I really didn't want to do it, but she was so nice, and I said, oh my God, how do I get this woman off my back? I really do not want to do this. So just a little stat, within McDonald's, about 25 to 30,000 people apply every year, and about only 100 at that time got accepted into the program, because you have to get accepted into the program and work for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years for nothing, for free. And still maintain your job, because you still need to support yourself and your children. And then one day, then I got accepted into the program. So then I said, oh my God, the heck was that all about? Just got accepted. So I really didn't want to do it. So I did my training. One night I went and they put you through this rigorous training. You go in at nighttime, they make you do fries all night long. And then all I did was just fries. All I did was fries. I think they try they're trying to beat you by attrition. So I did fries, and then you have to get up the next morning and you have to open. And I said, oh my God. So I got home. So on the Sunday night, then you have to do Sunday afternoon. So I got home, and at that time I have 2 children. So I got home and I said, I'm not going back. I didn't kill anybody. I am not doing this. I swear I did not commit a crime. I'm not doing this again. So my children at that time, they looked at me and they said, oh my God, Ma, you always tell us not to be quitters, that you're quitters. You don't raise quitters. You raise men and women. They were little. I said, okay, I have to go back. So I went back, and to make a long story short, I took a chance. I sold my business for $250,000. That my investment that I started with $15,000 turned it around, $250,000. And during my training, as you know, where people say, well, there are times that are really, really difficult. So I was training in Little Falls, and I lived in Cranford, and I would drive, and I would open the windows and cry and curse. I really got my PhD in cursing on the Parkway. Because I couldn't share that with anybody else, because nobody would understand that I had 2 children, I worked 50 hours in my job, and I had to put in a minimum of 25 hours to train. And then I trained, and there was this large Arab population there. And in the back room of a McDonald's, they have these videos, and they would put videos of belly dancers. And they were just belly dancing, and then they really did not enjoy working with women. So they would say to me, they would say, Mama, go home and have babies. I said, no, I don't want to have any more babies. I have 2. So that was, even then, and they were just workers like I was, but they just did not want me there, because they, for whatever reason, go home and have babies. So to make a long story short, 25 years later, I operate 11 McDonald's with my daughter, and I'm mentoring her, and she's way better than I am. And all my other children. So then I have 5 children, but 2 I brought into this world, and the other 2 I just picked from love. So, because I don't want you to think that, oh my gosh, yeah, how many children do you have? So I do have a total of 5 children, but 3 are adopted. So I brought them in later on. So it's a story. There's a lot of struggles. A lot of struggles, but everybody you can do it. This is the country that everybody in this room can be bright in the White House. Everybody here, we could all do it. I've done it, and I did not go to Harvard, and my parents had no money at all. So you can do it. There's those, if you just learn. My safety net was that Parkway South, the windows open, and I got my PhD there. So
Isn't that a great story? All right, Catherine, Catherine's been with J&J, again, for 27 years in the supply chain, done pretty much everything with accolades and associations and, a member of almost everything that could be. Can you talk a little bit about risk-taking and how you've been able to get to the level that you are at Johnson & Johnson?
Sure, I'd be happy to. So yes, I've been at J&J my whole professional career. I'm a Jersey girl, so I was born and raised here in New Jersey, grew up here in New Jersey, went to university in New Jersey. My first 28 years of my life was all within about a 10-mile radius. And I joined J&J. I was actually about to go to Procter & Gamble, and at the last minute, I made a very, very good decision, at least as it's played out for me. I think risk-taking is, first, it's very personal, because all of us have a comfort zone that we're good in and we like, and we all have things that we perceive as risky, right? And then we're talking personal risk-taking, right? Not necessarily business risk-taking,
Right.
which is another conversation. And so I said, I'd grown up here my whole life, my friends, my family. I have a brother, a sister, parents, but both my parents were only children, so no cousins, no aunts and uncles, so we say we're small but united as a family. And I had the opportunity about 5 years into my career at J&J to be offered a chance to move to Puerto Rico, which was a big manufacturing hub for us across our businesses, and to move there and to get experience. I'd worked in facilities. I'm an engineer by education, so I'd done engineering projects. I'd built some buildings here in New Jersey for Johnson & Johnson, but I had a chance to go take another step to broaden my career. And so as part of that, it was a pretty big decision for me. I had never really intended to stay around New Jersey, but moving to another culture, a place where another language is the primary language, although in Puerto Rico there's a lot of Spanglish, so it's also an incredibly warm culture. But the first big risk, and I think the thing that was really the pivot in my career, was making this first decision to move away. I was single at the time, so to move away from my whole support network, my family, my friends, to a new work environment, changing function a bit. And it was both exhilarating and it was difficult. It was difficult in the sense of I was going into a place where we were in a very important growth moment of our company, but there were a lot of business aspects that hadn't been attended to. And so some part of that organization wondered if I was the spy, right? And others were willing to embrace me and trust. And so it was culturally, it was just a very difficult moment for our company. And I had to really learn to work in a very different way. The culture is vibrant and is very different than a New Jersey culture of the whole island and of the company there. Understanding that some chunks of people were suspicious of me, and yet I'd never done anything to do that. But I really had to earn that trust, but find it in a way that was just very different than I'd ever done before. So I relied on that, on just being an incredible listener, a digester, a relationship builder, and it really embedded in me not only the need to realize you've got to be a continuous learner in every part of your life, not just your work life and not just how to, fix things in your house. I mean, just every part of your life evolves, and you really have to be a continuous learner in that. But it also expanded my risk comfort zone. And I was supposed to stay there for 1 to 2 years, and it actually became 7. The first, if any of you are from the island or the culture, I'll tell you the first holiday party I went to in Puerto Rico, to tell you a story, is this incredibly amazing party where everyone gets dressed to the nines, and they're the best bands on the island, and the music is incredibly loud, and you have all your work colleagues, and they have this unbelievable party. And the first year I was so miserable. This was not my space. I was like, wow, these are all, there's the guy I work with, and he's, merenguing. I'm like, this is kind of weird. I was a pretty buttoned up person. And I'll tell you, by about the third time, I learned the merengue and the salsa, and to this day, I miss that vibrancy that comes. And so from there, I had the chance to move to Europe. And to take another leap, I actually moved then to Italy, to the south central part of Italy, to be a general manager. I can tell you at that moment, 15 years ago, there were no female plant heads, general managers. No one spoke a word of English, but I'd done it once. And so it expanded my risk profile. And there I actually then happened to meet the man who's now my husband and the love of my life.
Risk reward.
Risk reward. But he doesn't speak, I'll wrap it up here, but he didn't speak a word of English. And so while I'd gotten by in Puerto Rico with some Spanish, I had learned a little Italian, but it really had to accelerate. So when you see me up here with my hands flying, it's because my whole life outside of work is in Italian. My husband only speaks Italian. But then again, I never in my life growing up in the central New Jersey in this tiny place would think that I would marry someone, from another part of the world. And so the moral of the story is if you're willing to take those risks, be thoughtful, but you'll find your risk zone just keeps expanding, and then you learn to really, get comfortable in a lot of spaces you might not have ever imagined in your life you'd be comfortable in.
Love it. By the way, Catherine is a graduate at Princeton University. So I also want to mention on a personal note for me, I have a group of friends, and my best friend, again, my business partner, Colleen, we've been since 10th grade in high school. And we have a group of friends, there's about 15 in our group, we call them Yadas, like I'm sure you guys know. And everyone in the group has a totally different personality. We all admire each other, we don't judge each other with the best we can since as far back as 40 years. In this panel, I'm just admiring it because Catherine works at J&J, and I'm an entrepreneurial person. And in our group, there's about 3 Johnson & Johnson professionals. And I admire you so much. I'm an entrepreneur, so we're going to get to you, Brenda, again in a second, because it's like with Wells Fargo. But to be able to manage a business and career for 27 plus years at Johnson & Johnson, through everything you described, with the risks that you take, and then also to manage the personalities as a woman, it's always changing, and you have to deal with all those politics and stuff. So I just want to call out that I really. Okay, Brenda, what about you? Let's hear about some risk.
Yeah, I was just sort of thinking, trying to get my strategy together in terms of maybe I should go overseas to find another husband. Since we're all trying to share best practices here, let me just see.
Come along.
So, not at all part of the script. My PR person is going to kill me when I get off the stage, but there you go. Anyway, so I will say this. So I did grow up. I was part of a family of 4 girls. My father was in the Army, so we sort of moved around quite a bit. Sister born in Hawaii, one in New Mexico. I was born in Miami, another sister in Atlanta. So we grew up sort of, all over the place. And then what was interesting about me is I didn't initially really think of myself as a risk taker because I was the girl in the back of the room, the shy one with the calculator, who, if you said hello to her, she'd pull the calculator out of her pocket and calculate how she's supposed to respond to you. I mean, that really was who I was. And when I went to college, I actually went to school to become an actuary. So I was a statistics, mathematics. That's really what I was. And so it was interesting. And I'd worked out of college. I went to school in Washington, D.C., my undergrad, and then when I got out, I was supposed to go to Hartford, Connecticut, right, to be an actuary. So that was sort of the highlight of my life. And then I had this epiphany that, perhaps I really like people as well as calculations. Imagine that. And it was at that moment I really then sort of expanded and then started to do something in a more sort of broader, more management role. Went back and got my MBA from UCLA, and I was really breaking out at that moment. Now I wasn't an actuary. Now I was going to be a corporate finance analyst. Oh my God! So I was living on the edge. Well, there you go. I mean, listen. Not everybody wants to go have cocktails with me. Let's just be clear. So what I found in my strength around analytics is that is what allowed me to do so much within the company. And I think what you find out about yourself is that we all have our own individual strengths. I can't be you, you can't be me. I've got to be the best me, you've got to be the best you. And so we all have to leverage what we believe our strengths are to get to the next level. And so as I came out, I'd done a short stint with JP Morgan in their corporate finance group. And then upon graduating from UCLA, I went into one of the predecessors of Wells Fargo. I was an oil and gas utility industry analyst. I did some telecommunications industry work, construction lending and the like, sort of moved from place to place. And at the time, I didn't really see it as risk-taking, because if you think about it, everybody sort of capitalizes on what they think their strength is, and you sort of keep going along. And those of you that are not in financial services, you say, well, when did you work for a bank? But really, there are different disciplines, and as you move from place to place, it really does take really a lot of courage to say, I'm going to stop doing what I'm doing. I'm going to go do something else. So I did a little, after being an analyst, I also took time, and this is all in Los Angeles, mind you. So I had lived in LA, where I actually met my husband in Washington, D.C. In college. We got married. I moved to LA. We had 2 amazing kids. And then being in LA for as long as I did and doing as much as I did, one day I had a mentor. Her name is Lynn Pike, and I talk about her all the time. It's about women really giving an opportunity to other women. So I had been in this other job. She said to me, I've got retail banking stores, would you like to move over to this other group? And I go, well, yeah, and went home. I told my husband, and he said, oh, that's great, because that meant I was going to get a raise. I told my kids, the kids said great, because that meant they would get more toys. So, and for me, it was really about being able to leverage what my strengths were, and I never really thought about the fear of doing something different, because I felt as though at any moment I had the background and I thought the analytical sort of mental agility, if you will, to just learn something and go from place to place. I didn't realize at the time when Lynn Pike selected me to do that it was really at great professional risk to her, because all of a sudden, there's all these people in line waiting to be what was an area president in the Los Angeles market, and she selected me, who had never ever worked in retail banking before. And I think what it did for me is it gave me the responsibility to sort of pay it forward to others and really recognize strength and talents within others that is transferable. So I didn't really see that as really particularly courageous. Then I had an opportunity with the merger between Wachovia and Wells Fargo, which happened to be the largest merger of financial services in financial services history, to bring 2 companies together. I was asked to come from Los Angeles to New Jersey to help with the conversion. And so while I'm called Southern New Jersey, it's sort of half of the state, from like central to southern New Jersey. When I came, my son was going off to college. My daughter was 15 years old. And I was very excited until one day I said, Alexis, you've done a really nice job, transitioning, to thank you so much for supporting Mom and come and just being such a great, she said, Mom, it's good, I'm really proud of you, but, I just want to tell you, for the first year that we were here, I went home and I cried for a whole hour every night. My heart just broke, because when you decide that you're going to make these, you take chances. It's not just about you. You look at everyone's career. You say, well, this is how you've gone from place to place. But the real story is the fullness of our lives and what else we have to juggle. The life that I was a mother, and I was going to be a good mother. And all of a sudden, I found that while things were going well at work, I wanted to make sure that my daughter was fine, that she was doing well, and that things were moving forward. I think, and then the other part of it is, as I came out, you don't think about this as being chance, because the region has done really well, Wells Fargo's done well, but the other part of it is, I come out, nobody knows me, Wells Fargo and Wachovia together, there's nobody from the West Coast, and you want everybody to like you. Then behind the scenes, I find myself going through probably one of the, look, I've only gone through one divorce, but it was probably the worst one in my life. And you're dealing with all this stress, and you're going to work every day, and you're trying to say, I need to make this merger work. Meanwhile, the behind the scenes, your life has fallen apart. That, to me, is somewhat of the story that never gets told for women who are dealing with kids and families. So that's probably one of the reasons why, so yes, I moved, and I have a hyphenated name, but I did drop the husband when I did move to New Jersey. So, but I have lots of stories like that. But the courageous piece of it is not just the jobs that we take, but the entire part of our being and what that means. And those are the stories that we tell that talk about the chances that we take, the courage that we, and I think, there's no other, I certainly have been happy to be at a company where I've been able to be an entrepreneur inside of a large corporation to really make some things happen, and that, at the end of the day, things are great. My son has graduated from college. Yay, no more tuition. No more tuition, and he's actually paying his own rent, his own utilities. Everything's great. Yay! Got a job as a software engineer with Booz Allen, and my daughter, who is a Spanish and international studies, so she's been overseas, and now she's about to graduate. All's well that ends well if we do take chances in life. Thanks.
Well said. And what makes me laugh a little bit, makes me smile, Brenda, is when I'm thinking back about you with the calculator, and then now you're the icebreaker. Yeah. You learned a lot along the way. And
thanks.
Also, Brenda has been named one of the top 50 business leaders in New Jersey by NJBISD. So. All right, so we were talking, like you said, about chances, risk, courage. But I agree with Lieutenant Governor. Like, if we're women here, I personally want to hear the down and dirty, low down, the challenges, the worst, the struggles. What have you had to come across along your way that has really been a struggle that you were able to overcome that has actually made you a better person, brought you higher and higher in rank? You want to go, Catherine? Or you want to go? Go ahead.
So I'm basically in an industry that's predominantly male-dominated. So when we had 2 stores. So my husband works with us. Now he's not really working. He's been ill, so he's been playing a lot of golf. So at the beginning, somebody would come in, and whether a vendor or a salesperson or somebody, they would say they wanted to talk to him. So I would say, okay. So I would say, but maybe I can help you. And then they would say, no, we really need to talk to him, to the owner. I said, well, I bet you that I can help you. That no, we need to talk to him. I said, okay. So I would give him my husband's number, and they would call him, and they would speak to him, and he would say, oh no, I make no decisions. You have to talk to her. So then they would have to come back to me. So that was a big hurdle as to be in, and then dealing in, and I do a lot of construction, knowing what a drywall is and what a 2-inch piping is and what PVC is, and so drywall is not and it's not a Walmart. What was the Hiltons would say what drywall was. So getting to be respected in that space of construction, of sitting on boards, and we sit on a lot of nonprofit and supply chain. So that was the biggest hurdle as to people, as to men, or even women. Just they want to speak to him. So that was one of my hurdles.
That's a really good point. I think that we can all relate to that. I totally can. What about Brenda? You want to talk? I know, Catherine, you're next.
Yeah.
Struggles, I've had none. So what's the next question? No, just kidding. So it's interesting. I probably have a bit of a sort of a different twist on the whole thing around struggles. What's interesting to me is, and this is going to sound a little weird, but for me, the biggest struggle for me has been getting to a place where I allowed myself to fail. And so what does that really mean? So if you think about it, you spend so much of your time just trying to prove that you belong, right? That you're doing a great job, and you want to be respected. You think about when you walk in the room and you're the only woman that might be there, you think about the impact of you not representing well. What's going to happen to all the other women that walk through the door if you don't do a good job? What's going to happen to the other African American women, or that, if I don't do a good job? And what that does, though, is interesting. That fear fuels you, and it actually catapults you to some level of success. But on the other hand, if you think about it, it can also be very limiting, because in failure comes the opportunity to grow and to uncover, some of those weaknesses, and really catapult you to another level of strength. And for me, I don't know if anybody watches TED Talks. Is it TED Talks?
Absolutely.
So Brene Brown, has anybody heard of Brene Brown? Well, right, her name, I really love her. So she does this talk around vulnerability. And the whole idea for me, and one of the things that really fuels me, is the idea that I fundamentally believe that for me, in financial services, while yes, I am a financial services professional, my own personal mission is, how do I make a difference in other people's lives? How do I make sure that if I am in your presence, somehow I have left you better off? And for me, up to this point, it's really been about, if I'm good, if I don't make any mistakes, if I do this, I'm really being a great example. But what is lost in that is that they don't really see the real me and the opportunity. I don't give them, I'm not an example of what it means to say I made a mistake and to recover from those mistakes. And I think the best that I've been is when I have fallen on my face, and sometimes publicly fallen on my face. That was a struggle for me, because I didn't really understand that vulnerability could in fact mean strength, and that when I open myself up, I give people around me the permission to do the same thing. And the worst thing you want to be as a leader is to have people around you who are afraid to say, I have a question, I failed, and I think I have become better, because I think I'm much better at saying that I have fallen down, and certainly you've got to have a platform to say, first of all, you can't just be making mistakes all over the place, let's be clear. But once you've established yourself and you've gotten credibility, the power of saying that vulnerability isn't a weakness, it is in fact a strength. I am open, you see the best of me, and because you see the best of me, then I can give the best of you. And then for me, that means that I can then really live my own personal mission. So.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's so true. I mean, I actually want to hear from Catherine about that, then I want to follow up with that again. So Catherine, tell us.
Sure. So for me, I was very, very blessed with parents who raised us to say, encouraged us and to say, do what you love to do, find what you love to do, do it, right? Life is too short. Build your career around that, enjoy that, and if you find what you love to do, you will do it 10 times better than doing something you don't enjoy. I think one of the biggest learnings for me, though, was that is absolutely not static. And some of the most important decision moments in my life was when I was forced to stand back and realize that what I thought I enjoyed doing, I didn't enjoy anymore. And whether that's in the academic life, so when I was going through university, I was convinced from the time I was a teenager I was going to go into this new emerging field of computer science, And I was sure I went in to become major in electrical engineering and computer science. And I'd love to do it as a teenager, right? I went, had a job, and I bought the first Apple II PC, and that was like the equivalent, right, of the calculator thing. I was the girl who liked the computers. And about almost 2/3 to 3/4 of the way through university, I was sitting one night at 2 a.m. in the basement of the computer center, looking around me at all these guys, by the way, at these green screens, who were they were just loving it. And the assignment was like, make 10 lines of code run 6 milliseconds faster. And it just hit me. I looked around and I'm like, I don't want to be here. This is not what I thought it was going to be at all. And I would honestly say some of that was precipitated by a couple months before, my mom had her first bout with breast cancer. And she's now a 3-time cancer survivor. She's doing terrific. She's 79. Fabulous. But she really showed me through that how important it is to think that you have to take stock, and don't take stock just when you find out you have cancer. Take stock at certain moments. And so at that time, I made a very tough decision to actually change majors. I went over to civil engineering and operations research. I had to circle back and do a lot more work than I would have if I just took the easy way and sort of finished what I was doing. And that happened to me a few times in my career. I think it is a very personal struggle, but it is a very important one, because you can get so focused. I found myself getting so focused in the job I had to do, or what I thought I was supposed to be doing outside of work, or what my husband wanted me to do. And if you do that, you'll get yourself to a very bad place. And so there were times where I found myself, when I was single, coming into the office at 7:30, and I'd roll home to my cat around 9:15 at night. And I just thought, working harder, we'd be done sooner, and then I'd get to go be more balanced again. And it took a long time for me to realize, and it took a couple of mistakes that really came from me being tired, to realize that, okay, just doing more of the same wasn't the issue. And so my best advice would be, take that time. I really consciously take that time now to reflect and say, am I doing the best I can? Do I enjoy what I'm doing? Am I happy on my Saturdays and Sundays? Am I enjoying life in a balanced, integrated way? And so that, to me, was the biggest struggle, was realizing that it was so important that I actively work on that all the time. And that it's also not just about, to your point, what I feel, but it's the family. Right? And it's how everybody feels. And having those conversations are so important. Don't just assume, right? If you don't know that your husband is miserable because he doesn't speak English, and you really got to find a way to convince him to do that, right? It's a tough conversation. I still haven't completely cracked that, I'll tell you, but it's really important.
Great. I agree completely. Thank you. Brenda, I want to go back when you were talking about allowing those around you to be challenged, for all three of you, as leaders, when you are actually looking out at candidates for promoting and moving up, working in the office with your colleagues, the competition, how it feels. But I want to know, when you are looking at others that you are, like if you were here and these people were all applying for a job and it was the one up from, maybe vice president position, what is it that you would look for that would really engage you and say, this is the kind of personality, this is the kind of person that I want? And in that same question, is there a balance between someone being aggressive and versus assertive, where they're over the top and then you push it away? So, just a thought. Do you have anybody have an answer on that?
So, do you want to start? You'll start. Sure, I'll start. I look to be able to feel the person's brand. So obviously there's all kind of process. There's qualifications, and I'm assuming, right, we get to the point where we're meeting. That means you're inherently qualified for the role, right? You've probably, met some folks in our team or other things. When I meet you, I want to understand what makes you special. What makes you tick? What is that extra value that's beyond the content? And again, you've got to have the content. We've all got to be continuous learners. I learn more today at 50 on an average week than I absolutely did when I was in school. So we have to be continuous learners, but you bring more than just the content in your brain. You bring your style, you bring how you engage people, you bring how you motivate people, how you connect things. Because as we all talked about, it's not just what you're doing, it's how you're doing it. So when I meet one, I want to be able to feel that. I want to get into a rich conversation. I never ask, tell me a little bit about your career. I sort of say, tell me some of the things that made you the kind of leader you are today. What were some of those experiences and why were they important to you? So that it's that spark, that's the piece that I think really differentiates people and lets you also see where they can be most effective in the team you're trying to build, because it's also never about one person, right? It's about the whole team.
Yeah, one of the things that I immediately think about, as you mentioned, first of all, just being good at your job, that's sort of your ticket to play, right? That's how you actually get in the door. The thing that I'm keenly aware of is that leaders don't just lead processes, they lead people. And so the fact, and I think I touched on it earlier, the fact that you're really good in the current job that you're in doesn't always necessarily mean that you'll be great at the next level. And leaders really do have to demonstrate, and that really is a bit of the challenge. And that, in many instances, is the risk that many leaders or many companies are facing as they're looking to move someone to the next level. It isn't sometimes about me per se. It is the fact that now I then am influencing at a larger level, which means that I can do a lot of good at a larger level. As my two colleagues have said, I could leave a lot of dead bodies at a larger level. And so it is the business that's at risk, but it is also the people that you are leading, because at the end of the day, as leaders, you are getting the company moves forward not by your own, what happens within your own two hands. It's your ability to influence, motivate, inspire, and get other people to the next level. And so if you're promoting someone there, you got to understand the impact that they will have on the business at a larger level, but also their ability to coach other people to do what they can't do. I can't do everything. If I get promoted, I can't show up. The reason why I know, you know what's happening in a particular amazing about what you do is you can't be in every single McDonald's. If you don't coach the right person, you've got to make sure that they know how to do that. That's the risk when you promote to the next level. And it is a challenge that when I look at when I'm looking for someone who might be a store manager that wants to be a district manager, or a district manager that wants to be an area president. Can you lead at a larger level? I was good here, but will I be good over there? And the impact of you making a mistake at a larger level, there's a lot of people that could be impacted. And that's a responsibility that I really look for, trying to make sure that you demonstrate the ability to think at that larger level, to understand that your role is at that larger level. And of course, there may be some opportunity really for me to coach you as you transition to the next level. Did you want to add?
As we look to promote people, and when you speak to them, what I mostly look at is I look at people, how they are as people, women or men, how they interact in their daily lives and what makes them tick, what they like to do for sports, what the job that they're pitching for, we've all agreed that they're qualified to do that job. So what kind of human being are you? What kind of human being are you going to be when you're working with those people, when you're working with women and men, and they come to you and they have these tremendous bags that are so heavy that they can't even carry that themselves? How far are you going to go out there for them? how do you understand their lives? Can you identify? Can you say, I've been there? So what I look for is I look for people that are good people and people that will lead people and people that understand people. Because you can be the most brilliant human being and your heart is just a stone. And if that is just a stone, you will never be able to lead, you will never be able to mentor, you will never be able to push, and you have to make sure that you yourself are able to do their job, that they know, that you know that where they're going, you've been there, you've done it, and therefore you understand. Just as an example, the other day, I walked into one of the restaurants and there was something funky in one of the bathrooms, and when I walked in, the lobby lady was going to go clean it. I said, no, I'm going to go clean it. So this is a true story. So I said, give me some gloves. And she goes, no, you are not going to go clean it. I said, I am going to go clean it. You do not need to clean that. So we were in the lobby with this little lady that must have been 4 feet tall, that she is, in West Market in Newark, and she's fighting me for the broom and the buck and this thing. So they have to respect you, and they have to truly respect you. And then if they need something, and you have to go out on a limb for them, and I've done things and been places in the middle of the night that shouldn't have not been there, but they know they can call me, and that's how you develop great leaders, by understanding their pain, their aches, and their joyous moments also.
I have a couple other questions, but I wanted to open it up to the audience right now. And anybody have any questions for any of these ladies? Okay. Do you want to come up here? Sure. Okay.
My name is, Hi, everybody. My name is Flor Dorsley Moore. I work with Berkeley College Online. My colleagues are sitting with me. I wanted to ask Celeste a question. Celeste, your story of the training that you had to go through, the struggles with your family, just helping everyone, and still knowing that it was going to, well, maybe not knowing that it was going to work out in the end. How have things changed, or have you been able to change it for other women that are coming, into that program so that they don't have maybe as hard a struggle as you did?
Right. So when I did my training, it was a great training program, but it wasn't doing what I thought should have been doing. So later on, I jotted down and kept a ledger of things that I wanted to have changed. And then since then, I have trained in my restaurant, I have trained about 12 we call them registered applicants, and they come to you, as I have one right now. I have trained men, women, Black, Hispanics. So I helped to change the way that the training format was done, because it didn't touch upon the things that I thought that were really important. Yeah, they were focusing on the physical aspect of the training, but they were not focusing a lot on the back office of the training, and that either makes you or breaks you. So I have, yes, it was very important, and it has changed the program a little bit as of today. And right now I do have a registered applicant in my restaurant.
Other questions? Come on up.
I can speak.
Okay.
Carol Ann Garofalo, Executive Director of Mount Bethel Village, a residential community for adults with special needs. I'm looking around the room and I see a lot of young women and a lot of older women. And I'm proud to tell you I'm 71 and still working.
Yay.
I'd like to know what advice you'd like to give women of all ages in terms of, yes, you balance your personal life with your business life. What have you done to prepare for either retiring, which I'm not going to do, and being financially comfortable as a woman?
Wow.
So banker should take that one. So I'll start with the whole, you asked a question about balance. I will, one of the things that I'm very, very good at, probably sometimes to a fault, is admitting what my strengths are, what my weaknesses are, and balancing life in general with my kids. I will say that I didn't always do that well. I think, in the moment, you are balancing, you're on the soccer field, and you think you should be in the office. You're in the office, you think you should be in the soccer field. So I think over time, I think I've gotten better about that. Before I get to the financial question. As it relates to finances, one of the things that I did do is I did sit down with a financial advisor. I started, and I'll say this, divorces do sort of change the economics of things. So I sat down with a financial advisor, looked at kind of what I was making, what my retirement was going to look like, where do I think I want to be, when I do retire, which, for some people will be 65. For me, I actually like working, especially since there are no kids to come home to afterwards. And I sat down and really looked at, what I thought I was going to need and planned for that. Tried to pay off as many of, I would say any financial obligations that I had, and also recognize that I still had kids in college. So sitting down, getting some financial advice, I think was really very helpful. Hopefully that's the answer that you're looking for. And women who are starting off right now, one of the things I do tell my daughter is, if there's a 401k plan that you should, initially you should start doing that right now. You should make sure that you're taking advantage of 401k plan, that you are not living beyond your means. It's, my son gets out, he gets a really nice job as a software engineer, and really he's like so happy, he wants to spend all of his money. So teaching him how to budget, there are lots of programs that'll teach you how to stay within your financial means. How much do I make? How much do I want to spend? And how much do I want to save? Start having those conversations right away. And then I would say initially starting with a financial advisor initially.
Did you want to answer? There's a
Oh,
question.
sure. I'm sorry, I didn't, I thought, did you want to answer that question as well?
I think she answered.
Okay. Was there another question?
Hi, I'm Stacy Lawlier. I work for Johnson & Johnson. Hi, Kathy. So the job I have today did not exist 5 years ago, and I'm pretty sure the job I want 10 years from now does not exist today. Do the three of you have any advice on how to prepare for those jobs in the changing economies and in the changing work environment to prepare us for those jobs that don't exist in the future?
I'll jump in with maybe two points. One is the continuous learning part. So I think it is so important to be both a sponge in terms of your entire environment, but also staying very up to date, whether it's through groups like this, through industry associations, through just your kids or the people you talk to. Really understand, always have a forward-looking philosophy. That's how I would boil it down to. Sometimes we spend so much time thinking about what we've done in our career behind us, but that's done. So what is the future? What's your forward-looking philosophy? What are the things that fascinate you that are evolving? And again, find that space that you love to do. And second, I would say, don't be afraid to create those jobs. I've actually probably created 3/4 of the jobs that I've had in my career.
Really?
They didn't exist. I saw a unique opportunity, or it was the right moment in the business to combine some things that didn't exist before, to look at it in a different way. And that was a big part of my success, but also how I created opportunity in a pretty structured world, right? I run manufacturing, distribution around the world for J&J. Any J&J product you ever bought anywhere in the world is made by my team. right? So you think that's pretty like chunk, but in fact, the world is really changing a lot, and the way you do supply chain is so different today than it was when I started my career. So, take those opportunities, be forward-looking, and don't be afraid to create the job that you want.
So, as we speak of the changing world, so if I were a young woman or a young man, I would go out there and I would start learning a different language. It is so important. So many doors will be open to you by just knowing how to speak a different language. And once you speak it, and you have to see what language and I don't want to push the Spanish because I'm Spanish, but so that will give you such an edge, such an opportunity, and just that you will be able to travel all over the world. And if you learn how to speak one language, it's easier to speak another. So that's what I would tell you, to just go out. And with Rosetta Stone for your husband.
Yes.
So I learned how to speak Portuguese later on in life, and oh my God, it was so difficult. So, but there's nothing that you just don't put your mind to that you can do.
Do you want to add to that?
No, I think they've done a nice job.
Okay. Okay, we've got another question back there.
Hello? Hi, my name's Anne-Marie McDonald, and my question is for Brenda. There are a lot of people in this room who may be thinking about their future and how to build the skill sets they need for the C-suite or for that next level in their careers. So what advice would you have for someone as far as gaining responsibility or gaining visibility so that you're on the radar when an opportunity presents itself?
The visibility question. Okay. What's interesting, I think the previous speaker talked about the fact that there isn't really a lack of confidence, if you will, for women. And I have a bit of a different twist on that, because I think that in many instances, women work hard and are really good. See, that's my music. But there's always that looming question, do I belong in the room? So I'm here, but should I be here? And I keep working hard just to make sure that I belong here. And I think the first question is just making sure we're comfortable that we have convinced ourselves that we belong in the room, that we've done what it takes to be in the room. And once we're there, I think when it comes to visibility, first of all, when you're looking for visibility, let's not look for visibility. It's about me. Let's find an initiative, a need of the company, and really put yourself around a project that will be helpful to the company. Build a team of people around you that can actually take on that project. I would also say mentors are really very, very good. Make sure you align yourself with a mentor, someone who may have, some knowledge or understanding of a different line of business or a different specialty, or may have access to resources that you don't have, that may be able to provide an introduction to a topic or a specialty that you may need. I also subscribe to the notion of a friend of mine called it like a board of advisors. And that's sort of bigger than, just one person, right? So Fran might be my mentor. I may have a team of people who will be my advisors, because not in any one person is housed all of the knowledge and skills that you need. So those are just a couple of things. And of course, you just got to be good. I mean, you can't, as they say, your game can't be raggedy, right? If you will. And you want to get visibility. You really do. I mean, excellence is an expectation. Just to walk through the door. And there was a woman, there was a motivational speaker I was listening to, and I think her name was Dee Marshall. She said, "There is no demand for ordinary." And yeah, and she said, so let's all be extraordinary. So.
Agree with that.
Can I add to that just for a second?
Absolutely, Kathy.
The other thing I would add, I think it's a great summary. The other thing I'd add to the question about opportunities is, one is the awareness, right? So if you're a continuous learner, you'll be building your network every day, not in the same place. So just think about, are you building your network in different places every day? Not just the same people, even if they're moving up the ladder, but are you getting to different populations? Are you meeting new people in your company? Are you understanding what that department does, or how that stakeholder of your corporation or your nonprofit is having a bigger influence? So build your network and you'll instantly be aware of a lot of other opportunities. But then once you're aware, you've got to raise your hand, because nobody knows what's in our brain except ourselves. Yeah. And it doesn't mean you're going to get every opportunity when you raise your hand, but if you do, at least you get the conversation going. So take the chance, raise your hand, and go for it.
Good morning. My name is Robert Buckley, and I'm Director of Business Development with Risk Strategies. I'm also an adjunct in management at Berkeley College. My question is, as leaders, we can't be leaders unless we have followers. We can't have followers unless we have a lot of customers. Do you see an intersection between leadership and customer service? And how do you communicate that to your rank and file?
So that is, I think that's the elephant in the room that everybody's trying to pick at. So if you have great leaders, you have more followers, and more followers, you have great customer service. I think that customer service is just a philosophy of the organization. It's a philosophy of where do you want to be? You think that you're going to lead, or you think you're going to have your customer lead your business? So when you are focused on customer centric, and when you focus on leading with a customer set of rules, that I think that you have a win-win situation. But when you think that you know all the answers, no, I think it's customer driven, and your customers will tell you where you should be going.
Yeah, the one thing I would add, and this is, I would say, more specific to Wells Fargo. So Wells Fargo has a vision that says we will satisfy all of our customers' financial needs and help them succeed financially. And so in order to be a team member or leader within Wells Fargo, you actually have to embrace that vision. I think no matter, and I've seen and worked for different companies, I think the thing that I have appreciated about it is, particularly when you think about the financial crisis over 2008, that started a while ago, the idea that your goal really is ultimately about the customer, that if you lead with the customer in mind, then the dollars will come after that, right? So it isn't about, well, I'm in the pursuit of the most money, but if you do what's right for the customer, the other things will follow. What's interesting about customer service, it really has been redefined over time. So if I look at Wells Fargo, I no longer look at customer service as compared to another financial services company. Customer service and the customer experience is now being redefined broadly across other industries. So now, when someone comes to Wells Fargo, they're also looking at, well, what was the experience with Google? What was my experience with Apple? So now, if you are not good at customer service, and if it is not at the core of how you do business, then you have no customers. And of course, and that again is not just based on the other financial services company, it's everybody else that's leading with the customer experience. How do I have the right kind of technology? How do I respond to my customers? Do I give them an email when they call me? Whatever, all of a sudden now what Amazon does or what Apple does now, all of the industries are merging, and so customer service is defined by what provides the best experience for the customer, no matter what industry.
Yeah, I completely echo that because all the sector roles, I would say, are falling down between industries in the sense of how customers behave and our expectations. We can each think of our own expectations as a consumer of something. So the whole omni-channel aspect of everything we're doing, you talk about a future, a forward-looking space to go into that will transcend every industry. It's the ability to have terrific customer experiences throughout that omni-channel. And the customer, to your question about is it linked to leadership, I mean, it's the center. The customer has to be at the absolute center of everything you do. I've been very fortunate working at J&J, where we have our leadership philosophy, our credo, which was written by General Johnson in the 1940s, actually before he took the company public, when he was the largest single shareholder. And he wrote down a leadership philosophy that now, 70 years later, still guides us. And it's really simple, that he wanted to make sure whoever was going to buy a share in his company understood exactly how he was going to continue to run his company. And it all starts with, we are responsible to the mothers and fathers and doctors and nurses and patients and healthcare workers that rely on our products. And it goes from there to employees, to our community and our responsibility to be a good corporate citizen. And the last responsibility is to the shareholders. So exactly as you said, if you keep your customer at the center and the forefront, and you treat your employees well and give them the opportunity to contribute, and you're a good citizen, and you contribute to the community you're in the end, your business should thrive. But the tools we use in 2015 are really different than the tools in 1940, and that's the piece, is staying in that forward-looking way with the customer.
Hi, I'm Tracy Fink with Cohn Resnick. I'm the director of our Executive Women's Forum, and I wanted to go back to that question about visibility. I created the position that I have today from a vision that I had, and ethically lobbying and being persuasive and not taking no for an answer. But one of the things that was very important to the position was that in addition to a mentor, I also had a sponsor. And I don't think that people really fully understand the difference between a mentor and a sponsor. How it was explained to me is that a mentor is someone who talks with you about your career, where a sponsor is someone who talks about you when you're not in the room. Could you talk a little bit about how sponsors have played a role in your careers and what advice you'd give to people in terms of getting a sponsor?
So first of all, thank you for raising that and really making the distinction, because there definitely is a difference. Someone who is your advocate is your sponsor. The person who is in the room when decisions are being made about who's going to get what position, and that becomes that's at the core of visibility, because all of us may be sitting there, we all may be equally talented, equally smart, equally strategic, but somehow, Brenda has a sponsor who can actually raise her hand. Because if you think about it, there's sort of a finite amount of time, that you have when you're making those types of decisions. How do you actually get a sponsor? That's sort of an interesting, that's an interesting question. I was fortunate to have a sponsor, and I talked about a woman by the name of Lynn Pike, who otherwise would not have even come into this space, except she knew me, she knew my talents, and she was willing to take, I say in retrospect, a risk on me, because while I thought I was talented, there were all these other people who had been waiting in line at the door who knew 15, 20 times more than I did about what was happening. So I would say, and I'll just back to sort of how do you actually get one, is really I would first align with, start with a mentor. And see if that mentor is in the space that you're interested in. I think the other thing about the sponsor is the sponsor actually does have to have a little juice, right? So you're aligning yourself with someone who you know, you think they actually have a little juice, but behind closed doors, they really don't. I mean, you actually don't really know that. So align with someone that you know, actually, that you trust, that you know knows your strengths and your capabilities, and who actually is in a position to really, move your career forward.
Yeah, I know we're at the end here of this panel questions. I love that answer, though. I think it's great. Make sure you have a good sponsor. All right, so I'm going to thank everybody. We're done with our questions right now. Thank you guys so much for your amazing generosity for all this information. And congratulations on your success. And we hope you enjoyed this panel and take away a lot of great insights. Thank you.